Okay, so welcome to part 3 of the NanoFX conversion tutorial. So just a quick recap. In the first 3 parts, part 1, part 2, and 2.5, I covered in part 1 converting the model from a Bridge Commander model into a DirectX format that you can then use in the NanoFX viewer. In the next 2 parts, I covered all about texturing, how to create normal textures, illumination textures, and the effects textures that give us the reflection on the window. So in the viewer right now, this is what we would have started with when we just initially imported the model. This one here is based on the TGA textures with no enhanced illuminations, no effects on the windows, and no normal mapping. But if you've done everything up to this point, you should have something that looks a little bit like the one behind it, which is this unit here. So the exact same model, but it has, as you can see here, it has normal map, which gives the original base texture a little bit of a three-dimensional appearance, and gives it some more gives it a perceived depth to the model that isn't actually in the model itself. And as you can see in the nacelles, we've added illumination maps, which have given us these nice little glows here in the nacelles, the Buzzard collectors, and in the intake for the impulse engines. There's lots of uses for the glow maps. You can use those for other things as well, like in bigger ships, the deflector dish will have, you definitely want to have that display a little bit of glow. So that's what you started with, and hopefully this is what you have by now. So it's actually looking really good. This has turned out a lot better than I thought it would. So let's go ahead and get rid of that one. What we're going to work on now is the deferred glows. And deferred lighting, basically is a simulated effect of an area that is illuminated. You want to give it the effect that it actually produces light that affects objects around it. So basically, if we were to fly this shuttle up close to something, so for instance the shuttle bay or anything else, we want the light that's emanating from the nacelle to actually reflect or glow onto an object. That is done through the hardpoint editor. So the first thing we're actually going to do really quick is the hardpoint properties, go under physical attributes, and in the physical attributes, the first thing we're going to modify is the ship length. So if you've gone through and Googled this ship, you'll find that it's somewhere in the 8-meter range, and the scale is set to meters. So just close that, or delete the 0, plug in an 8, and save it, and you'll immediately see that your model is going to resize to that. So it's now exactly from bow to stern 8 meters long. So it should be in very close relation to any of the other ships that you have currently with the model viewer. You should actually have a model of the Intrepid class, and so this will be scaled perfectly to match that. So what we're going to do is also under ship properties and physical attributes. This is where the deferred light points are created and modified. Now, just a quick warning that the hardpoint editor is pretty buggy, especially when it comes to the deferred lighting points. The input method is, I think it was just basically unfinished at the time of release. So it can give you a lot of errors. It certainly won't save a lot of your settings. I find I can accomplish a lot more actually in Notepad. So we'll touch on that here in a second. So I'll just show you quickly. If you click on the lights under the physical attributes, so here's the type of lights that you can create: point and cone. I don't think cone has actually been implemented. I've tried using it, and they always just default back to point lights. So ignore cone lights. So what you want to do is select a part of the ship. So for instance, the nacelle, and we're going to plop using the right mouse button that little marker right there. So that's your hardpoint coordinate locator. Anytime you have the hardpoint editor open and you right click anywhere on the ship, if you click outside of the ship, you'll get just a little message here that says miss. So we're going to drop this marker somewhere in the middle of the nacelle, like so. And we're just going to create that light. We don't want to make any more changes in the hardpoint, the light properties, because it's not going to save them. So just go down here to the hardpoint, save, and close that. So there you go. There's our little light point. Obviously we don't want it right on the surface of the model because you can actually see the originating point of the light. But as you can see, we are getting a deferred or reflective light being displayed on the pylon here. So if we go back to our working directory, we're going to have a new folder, and there it is. It's called scripts, and really there's only two files you'll ever see in here. So the first file contains some information such as the physical properties in the hardpoints. So the length, the hull strength, so that's basically how much damage the hull can take. The detail texture scale, we'll get into that a little bit later. And it also contains all of your deferred light points. So there's the one that we just created. So we know that we don't want white, we want blue. So following traditional RGB color schemes, the color coordinates are very easy to figure out once you understand them. And that is, obviously this color is white. So we've got three numbers here, and they're all 255, and they represent the red, green, and blue. So the three primary colors. So as you mix these colors up, you'll obviously get resulting secondary and tertiary colors. So we obviously don't want white. So the first number is always red. So obviously there's not much red and blue, so we'll just go with 0. And we're going to max out the blue, so 255. So obviously 0 is no color, 255 is maximum blue. Oops, sorry, that's the green. We want 0 for green. The last one is blue. So we'll max out the blue, and we'll save it. So every time you modify the hard points in a text editor, make sure before you do any further editing, for instance in this hardpoint editor, like if we went in here and we added a nav light or we changed something in here, if we save that, it'll actually overwrite this file, and you'll kind of be scratching your head why the changes you make didn't take effect. So before we make any changes to the hardpoint editor within the NanoFX program, we'll reload the shuttle. So Federation Shuttles Type 9, make sure that you select Player Ship and Load Object. Okay, so deferred light there, as you can see it's blue. But we want to match the color of the nacelles, right? One nacelle seems to be a little bit different than the other. Let's quickly fix that. So Type 9, high, nacelle right. Remember the base texture controls, and the alpha channel controls how much of the illumination layer can see through. The whiter it is, or the more transparent it is, the more it will allow your illumination layer to show through. So image, adjustments, levels, and we'll grab the middle slider and move it all the way back. Okay, save, close. open. Go in here, hit F12 to reload the textures. Ah, there we go. So now we have two more uniform colors. Okay. So as you can see, the deferred glow doesn't match the color of our nacelle. So going back into our scripts folder and open up the Type 9 effects, and there's our colors. So if we go back into our illumination layer, so high, nacelle illumin, and get the eyedropper and just pluck that blue right there, and then you can close that if you want. So then go to your color picker, and it's going to give you right here your RGB values. So as we can see, the blue is pretty high, but there's a mix of green and red in there to give us that look. So it's 27, 102, and 231 in that order: red, green, blue. So 27 for red, the green is 102, and the blue level amount is 231. So let's file save and just close the color picker and minimize Photoshop. If we come back in, we're going to have to reload the model. It doesn't refresh our text edited hardpoint properties. It will reload if you use the hardpoint properties editor in the program. Every time you click save, it automatically reloads the model. But we don't want to do that because we've made changes outside of the program, which won't be recognized by the program until we reload the model. So Federation, shuttles, Type 9, make sure your player ship is selected, load object. So there we go. So our deferred glow, or the light that's radiating out from this area, looks to be pretty close to the color that we want. So obviously it's pretty dim, or what appears dim. So we'll go back into our text editor, and we're going to bump the radius up. We're going to go 30, and just as an extreme. Save. Go back into the program, reload your shuttle, and there's the effect. So go back into your text editor, and we're going to just knock this down to 20 and save. Go back in, reload your shuttle, player ship. Okay. So you're always going to get, I think this is a little more advanced in the involved engine, but for the NanoFX viewer, the deferred lighting doesn't have, I'm not sure what you would call it, like ray intersecting or whatever, so that the light knows, obviously, if it's emanating there, that it can't penetrate or carry through obviously solid objects. It can only reflect off of them. So as we see here, it's actually traveling through the objects, and it's hitting the pylon here, and if we increase the radius, it'll actually bounce off the side of the ship, and we know that that's not true to life. Let's just bump the intensity up to 2 in our text editor file. Save. Reload the ship and player ship. Okay, so you see the intensity has increased. So that's pretty good because we matched the color of the illumination layer, the illumination map. You don't see that little point of light, and you, depending on how illuminated the area is, it can be difficult to disguise that point of light. So for instance, if we power the ship down, you can kind of see where that point of light originates there, but it's basically invisible. Sometimes that won't always be the case, so you'll actually want to move on your X. You'll want to move that the originating point of light just a little bit behind the surface, so that you don't get that effect. So this is where it's important that your model is exactly centered on all axes before you export the final product. And the reason for that being is back in our text editor, we want obviously to create a glow on the opposite side of the ship in the exact same spot. So instead of going to the hardpoint editor and clicking here and creating a point light and then mucking around in the editors in the text editor as well, it's a really easy process, and it's simply in your text editor. Just copy and paste. So we're actually just going to quickly name this. So this was the port nacelle. And you don't have to get really descriptive because we know that this is a point light and it's the port nacelle. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and highlight the entire chunk there, go down a line and paste it in. So obviously if we were to save that and reload it, you're not going to notice any different. It's going to be one glow or one deferred light on top of another. We want to move it over to this side. So as we explained earlier, the x-axis is along this. So from port to starboard is where the x-axis travels. So it's really simple. So if we go in here, first thing we'll do, so we don't confuse ourselves later, we'll just rename this starboard nacelle. Same color, obviously, and the position. So it's x, y, z coordinates separated by commas. All we're going to do here is, because this port is on the left side of the center of the x-axis, it's negative numbers. This side is going to be positive numbers. If 0 was here, negative numbers increase in this direction, and positive numbers increase in that direction. So it's really simple. We'll go into the text editor and just delete the negative sign in front of the x-axis. File, save, load our shuttle, player ship, and if you centered the ship exactly before exporting, which I don't think I did, but it's pretty darn close. So there's our deferred light for each nacelle. It's not exact, but just make sure that you center your next model. Make sure that it's centered as closely as possible to all axes. Because when you move things around, like later on we'll get in maybe to some navigation lights, moving navigation lights from the bottom of the ship to the top of the ship, things like that can be easier achieved by just modifying the actual coordinates. Okay, so as you can see, this one's just a little bit on the outside, and we'll just do a quick correction. So one thing to do to really to quickly get your coordinates to get your coordinates, excuse me, go to the hardpoint editor for the only purpose of, just get that out of the way, bring up your coordinates. So F1, make sure all your information is displayed, and right click on the surface there, so we know that the X coordinates for right to the surface of this nacelle, so 42.42. So if we go back into our editor, close that, 42.42, so 4242, we can see right here that we've got 45. So obviously that's 3 points out from the model of the ship. So yeah, as you can see, it would be right about there. So we're just going to change that. Just go in here and go 42.42. You can keep those, or you can delete them. It doesn't really matter. They fell pretty close to the other. These coordinates, anything beyond the second decimal point, you're never going to notice a difference. Save. Go back in. Reload your model. Player ship. Unpause it, F1. So now, that was the original one we started with. And that was the one we copied, pasted, and then modified the X coordinates so that it was more truer to this side. So they're both pretty much the same. So as you can see, the light differs against the pylon here, and it's going to do the same thing to any objects that we come into proximity to. So let's go into Federation ships, and yours is going to be called, I think, Intrepid. I just renamed mine. Make sure you, whichever object you choose, make sure you uncheck use AI, otherwise it'll continually try to fly away from you. So there's Voyager. Do a quick fly to here.
Increase to warp 9. Full stop.
Okay, so here we are at the shuttle bay of the Intrepid class. In this case, it is Voyager. So we'll just go around till we're at the stationary view, and we're just going to slowly bring the shuttle in. And because we got the radius set pretty low, it's not really going to create a huge effect. It's more so on bigger ships. Obviously, the Voyager, for instance, its nacelles throw off much more deferred glow. But let's just try rotating the ship. So we'll just rotate the ship over and see what happens. And there you see it starts to develop on the ship. So the closer this nacelle, and obviously the point of light that we created, the closer it moves to an opposing object, and there we go. This is the effect that you would have seen in the launching the Enterprise video that was created in the Evolved engine. It's the same concept. I think it's been refined more for the Evolved engine. Okay, so let's go ahead and send Voyager to the Delta Quadrant. The next thing we want to do is, we'll touch on really quickly, is navigation lights. These aren't really important, but for screenshots and things like that, and just for overall realism, it definitely adds a nice touch. These can be created very easily in the hardpoint properties under ship properties and nav lights. So make sure you have nav lights highlighted, and before you create a light, always pick the point that you want the light to be located in. And again, this is why it's important that your model be exactly centered, because when we create lights on one side of the ship that we want to duplicate on the other side of the ship, we can just copy and paste them in our text editor. But if the ship is not perfectly centered, especially on the x-axis, your pasted coordinates will obviously be off because the ship isn't centered. So we'll just click right there, click on nav lights, and click add. So if you break the nav lights down, you'll have nav light 1. So if we just click somewhere else on the ship to move the marker, you'll see there's a little gray blob there, and if we move the sun, it is generating a little bit of light. These are scripted to produce their own deferred lighting, so they'll actually cast a light against objects as well. So under nav light 1 in the hardpoint properties, this is the FX script, so nav light. The color, and it's the same scheme as the deferred light, so red, green, blue amount. And the ID, that's just a name. So if you want to give it a name, I always like to name my lights, and we're going to name this port nacelle. The interval is for blinking lights, we'll do that next. And the size, I think the size is a little bit small. Let's bump it up to 2, hit enter. There, that's pretty good. And the color, of course, is not what we want. So use your text editor. So nav lights are similar in deferred lights, but they're actually located under hard points. So under the HP file. So there's the nav light we just created. There's the coordinates, the color, and the size, and the name. So ID, we're going to name this port nacelle, and we're going to change the color 0, 0, because we just want it to be red. So file, save. Now before we load it, let's just go ahead, copy it, go down here a line, paste it, rename it because we want to have two, obviously, a left and a right. And the left side, we don't want red, we want it green. So 0 for red, maximum for the green, and 0 for blue. Delete the negative sign for the starboard side. Objects to the right of center will always have positive numbers on the x-axis. File, save. And shuttles, type 9, player ship, load. And as we know with the point lights, the ship isn't exactly centered, so our starboard navigation light here is off center. So to fix that, hardpoint properties, click in the general area that you want it. And this is just to get the x-axis. That's the only one we're going to change, so you could even click up here if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter. Hit F1 to bring up your coordinates view, and it's 37.08. So close that, go back into your text editor, 37.08. So I think if we just change this to 37, we'll be close enough. So save, reload player ship, load, and goody. We have a port and a starboard navigation light. Technically, you should recreate them on the bottom. And again, that's pretty easy. All you have to do, go into your text editor, copy both of the lights that we just created, and paste both of them down here, and just rename them to bottom. Add bottom to the ID. And all we need to do here is find the new Y value. The Y axis travels in the top to bottom direction, and the numbers traveling in the up get higher in the negative, and if they travel down they get higher in the positive. So all we need to do is find the new Y that we want for the bottom. So the new Y coordinate, just click anywhere on the bottom of the cell in the general area that we want the light, and we will get our number here. So it's Y is 8.91. So we'll just go in here and change the second number, because that's the Y, to 8.91. So just delete the whole number and go 8.91, and do the same for the right side. 8.91, and save. This is important. Again, if your model is not centered, or if it has any rotation to it, this will kind of foul up your whole coordinate scheme. It's really important. So let's reload the model. I know it gets a bit tedious after a while, but you get used to it. And there we go. So as you can see, like I said, they create their own deferred glow. So the color's catching on this little bit of model that's protruding here. Okay, so there we go. Pretty neat. That was really quick, really easy. So that concludes this part of the tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll get into creating shields and creating weapons points. Okay, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 4.